Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Aether Hub. I'm Simon, bringing you another Magic the Gathering video. Today we continue our story through the frigid plain of Kaldheim, as we follow our hero Kaya through the burning gates of hell, and in this chapter it's pretty literal. If you haven't already, make sure you check out our previous chapter in the Kaldheim story linked in the description below in order for you to get caught up on the story. But as it stands, Kaya and Tyvar, a young planeswalker and prince of the Kaldheim elves, are teaming up to track down the slippery Tibalt, who they have just discovered is key to all the troubles going down on Kaldheim. Yes, Kaya was originally hired to slay a monster, but that mission has gone so far south that now the entire plane is in jeopardy. If she is to be the hero Kaya believes herself to be, then uncovering the plot of Tibalt would be a great place to start. Kaya, with some help from Tyvar, managed to get some information out of Tibalt in their first encounter, but the devilish planeswalker managed to escape using the Sword of the Realms, jumping into a realm of smoke and fire. This is Immersturm, the realm of the demons, and this is where we pick up our adventure with Chapter 4, Journey to the Realm of Demons. And as always guys, consider supporting the Aether Hub and future videos by leaving us a like, subscribing, and checking out our Patreon. Becoming a patron means that you guys get videos early, signed cards, and a lot more, all while supporting our content. So go ahead and check that link in the description box below and consider becoming a patron today. But now, let's get back to the lore. For the first time since traveling to Kaldheim on some odd mission to slay a monster, which has clearly gotten way out of hand, Kaya didn't fret the cold. In fact, now she longed for it. She and her partner, the cocky, headstrong elf Tyvar, managed to open an omen path in pursuit of Tibalt across the realms, following him to the only realm Tyvar could think of based off Kaya's description of what she witnessed when Tibalt actually jumped. A land of hot, molten rock, jagged black peaks, and a sky that looked to be on fire. It had to be Immersturm, the realm of demons. Tyvar opened a portal, and Kaya fell through with little grace and was hit instantly by a hot, stagnant, noxious wind. They had made it. Tyvar was pleased to see that his spell managed to bring them to Immersturm. After all, the gods had sealed this particular realm away for centuries. No one with any spell could break that barrier. They believed that Tibalt forcing his way into Immersturm via the Sword of the Realms likely weakened the god's barrier. Or perhaps Tyvar's planeswalker spark, along with his elvish magic of Kaldheim, allowed them to circumvent that barrier. Either way, the result was the same. Kaya and Tyvar were in the realm of demons. Immersturm is as inhospitable as you'd imagine a realm of demons being. The rivers ran red with molten rock, as spires of obsidian based with skulls and bones pierced the horizon. It would have been impossible for the pair to know where to begin their search for Tibalt, that is, if the planeswalker hadn't made it so painfully obvious. Tibalt knew these quote-unquote heroes would follow him here, and he wanted to ensure their demise. So he literally left them a pointing arrow in the right direction. Of course, Kaya and Tyvar should have been a little bit more skeptical than just to blindly follow an actual literal arrow left there by their enemy, but hey, the story needs to continue. As they jump over endless chasms and climb unforgiving rock faces, Tyvar and Kaya connect on what it means to be a planeswalker. Tyvar had just discovered that he is in fact a planeswalker, though he had never heard that term before and he had no clue his spark even ignited. Kaya explained that Zendikar, which he in fact visited before, was not a part of Kaldheim. Not one of its realms, but a world all of its own. The idea felt foreign to Tyvar, who still thought of the multiverse as being connected to this one world tree. But Kaya continued to hammer the idea that being a planeswalker was different from just simply traveling the realms of Kaldheim. It meant something more. But even with his love of glory and grand tales, Tyvar was just uninterested in the prospect of being a planeswalker. Kaya was taken aback. This guy's so headstrong, so confident, yet he wants to claim glory only on Kaldheim? Why does he get to choose to simply ignore this important aspect of himself? The very thing that Kaya had embraced so easily. But then she began to think on it. What it meant to be a planeswalker. Always moving, never having a true home again. Always forced to make new friends and allies. Sure, it was exciting at first, but seeing a new world each time left Kaya desensitized to the issues of those worlds. They were not hers. She had no stake and thus nothing to look forward to or to fear. These were always someone else's war, someone else's conflict, someone else's problem. But this is who she was. This was her code. To do no harm. That is, unless someone pisses you off or pays you well. There's always some flexibility, but every planeswalker out there needs something that grounds them from plane to plane. Wars, rules, customs, people, they may change as you planeswalk, so you must carry something with you, anything that makes you, you, no matter what plane you end up on. And Tyvar doesn't get a pass just because he prefers Kaldheim. Tyvar remained unconvinced. Sure, the adventures and glory of Kaldheim may seem small to one who has traveled so much, but to him, there was more than enough glory to be had across the realms of his home. The preachings of a stranger on the burdens of being a planeswalker didn't concern him. After all, he wasn't even aware he was one until just a few hours ago. As Kaya thinks again about abandoning this world, leaving it in frustration rather than stay as its hero, a harpoon crashes near their feet, missing them by a razor-thin margin. Demons. The demons reminded Kaya of pirates, as they floated down a river of lava on what looked to be a longboat, only demon-y. Its sail was made of a faint, flickering flame, and it was covered with metal platings, with barbs along its front and sides. It was a vessel built for war, for charging and ramming its victims, not built for speed. It appeared to carry 3 demons aboard, each more horrific than the next. The first wore a black helmet with added horns that looked to barely cover its own natural horns that jetted from its forehead. Another was missing its hand, but in its place was a crude, spiked mace that looked to weigh 100 pounds by Kaya's guess. And the final demon, the largest of the 3, was built like a tank. Strong shoulders covered head to toe in heavy metal platings. And still, they hurled at them harpoons from their ship. Tyvar was prepared this time for the sudden assault. He was well trained and quite skilled, Kaya had to admit. The elf danced through attacks as if performing an elegant routine with a less than excitable partner. Their demonic longboat crashed into the rocks the pair were using to observe Immersturm, with its occupants jumping out to face them. Tyvar quickly transmuted the black minerals around them to form some more room, building a bridge between the cliff's edge and the molten lava below. Kaya had seen transmutation magic before, but nothing quite like this. Tyvar was singularly gifted in the art. While the helmet-clad demon swung wildly at Tyvar, missing each time, Kaya was beset by the one whose hand was replaced with a mace. As the demon barreled down on her with an overarching swing meant to crush her into the dirt, Kaya saw the attack and managed to phase through it, turning her body ethereal as the blood-caked weapon smashed into the rock face, burying the demon's arm wrist-deep by the impact. Kaya jumped onto the demon's stuck arm, turning its mace incorporeal and having it rematerialize even more embedded in the rocks. As the demon grabbed and flapped its wings viciously to escape, it only found that it was hopelessly stuck, and Kaya was just too damn slippery. Without any weapons, Kaya didn't have much that could dispatch a demon, at least very few pleasant options. She spots the harpoon the ship had fired, still lodged in the rocks. Obviously way too heavy for her to lift on her own, but nothing a little magic couldn't fix. She lifts the harpoon, now shimmering with that same deep purple of her other spells, and its weight is suddenly gone. She easily throws the harpoon towards the stuck demon as it struggles to escape its path. In mid-flight, Kaya kills her spell and its weight suddenly returns just before it hits its target. The force of the harpoon explodes out from the demon's back. It had went clear through, only it was just as solid as any other object. The demon slouched over and died. As Kaya recovers some breath, she spots Tyvar fighting off his heels as the other 2 demons attack him in a flanked position. She didn't question his skills at this point, but there was an unknown to his endurance. How long could he keep this up? With 2 attackers, Tyvar was forced to play more defensive. There was little room for error when a single strike could take his head off. Kaya needed to step in and even the fight. Kaya runs forward and leaps from a rock, landing on the back of the largest demon, the one covered in hard metal platings. A demon's version of armor, she supposed. Though the thing was twice her height and more than twice her weight, being on its back was an ideal place as its broad shoulders left it flailing helplessly in a vain attempt to remove her, and any arms that got too close, well, Kaya simply phased through them. It was amusing to watch, but she wasn't here to play games. Without any weapons, Kaya had to use just her hands, a technique she didn't like using because it did cause a little bit of discomfort on her end. Phase a hand in, grab the heart, phase back, pull, and extract. She's done it before, but never on a demon. It was worth a shot. As Kaya turns her hand into a spear and plunges through armor and skin alike, she phases her hand back only to feel instant and agonizing pain, as if she had just stuck her hand into lava. Oh right, it's a demon. Still, she managed to flicker in and out enough to hurt it, but not kill it, all at the cost of a burning pain that encompassed her entire hand. The demon's mouth bubbled up a dark bile of boiling hot blood, sparking with fire and rage as it swung its gigantic warhammer down upon his enemy. Kaya danced out of the way, letting the weapon crash into the ground and allowing her to close the distance. Not for another attack, Kaya had learned her lesson, but so that she could get in underneath the demon. It was standing upon the bridge Tyvar had built, and with a simple touch, Kaya made that transmutated material no longer exist. The demon's feet now found no purchase as it clumsily falls into the river of molten rock. Victorious, Kaya then returns to the battle waging between Tyvar and his demon. Now, finding himself on a more level playing field, Tyvar allowed himself to have more fun and go on the offensive. At this time, Kaya noticed that Tyvar had transmuted his arm guard, and blade into the lava that surrounded them, blocking and swinging with flickers of fire dancing with every strike. Tyvar's arm guard and knife were now white hot as he slashes through one of the demon's axes, melting through it like butter. And with the very next swing, Tyvar found his foe's neck, cleaving clean through as the body seared and sizzled on contact. Its head rolled harmlessly from its shoulders and into the lava below, leaving a stench like burning hair wafting in the thick air. Though Kaya survived, her hand still throbbed from pain as Tyvar paraded her for her feats. This would be a story for the ages. Can you imagine? A human taking down not one, but two demons of Immersturm, unarmed no less. All the realm should hear of this tale. But Kaya was more worried about the task ahead of them. How would they track down Tybalt in this hellish place? Moreover, what would she do when she found him? This wasn't her fight, this wasn't her world. This wasn't even her job. The doubts she had about becoming a hero had come back to the surface. She could have died just now. She's hurt. This was against her code. The thing that made her so uniquely Kaya for so many years after her spark ignited. It was such a simple code. Protect yourself and do no harm. I guess now she was trying to help others more, you know, as a hero should be and all, but how much was too much? What more did she need to give? Besides, without weapons, how could she even stop Tybalt? Politely ask him to leave Kaldheim? Tyvar had a cure for at least one of Kaya's ills. As he collects the crude weapons from the dead demons, he prepares them for a spell. Kaya was amazed at Tyvar's proficient transmutations, and this as well, of course, didn't disappoint. Tyvar reached within the hunks of black steel and ripped from them small hunks of pure, unrefined, uncorrupted mineral. Tyvar told Kaya that all things seek to grow. People, plants, and even stone. In a place like Immersturm, a place so devoid of life, the earth itself is eager to grow at any point. His magic simply coaxed that desire out of whatever he touches. That's how he can so easily transmute things. And with that, Tyvar plants these hunks of metal as if they were seeds, and from the ground sprouted two jet black axes. Tyvar hands them to Kaya, understanding she prefers weapons light and fast, crafting them to what he believes would be her exact measurements. Kaya again had to admit that she was impressed. These axes pulled from the earth were well balanced and quick. They felt right. Together they hopped into the demon's longboat and pushed off to face their enemy. Just over the horizon where Tybalt's sign said he would be, Kaya spots a shimmering light that seemed out of place in Immersturm. It was familiar though. Yes, she remembered. It was the light that shined from Alrund, a god of Kaldheim. This was the light of the gods. Suddenly it hit her. Tybalt was in possession of a godly weapon that could open portals between worlds. He wanted to bring a Doomskar to all of Kaldheim. Now he's here, in the realm of demons. It all made sense. He was bringing them in to witness the creation of a Doomskar. As they dock their ship at the Blood Crag and start their ascent up the hill towards this light, they hear the ominous beating of drums coming from the lava sea. More ships, more demons. There must have been hundreds of winged monstrosities shouting in a crazed frenzy. It was an army of demons to meet two mortals? It didn't make any sense. Unless, Kaya thought, they weren't coming for them. On cue, Tybalt pokes his head out to take stock of his accomplishments. He reveals that Kaya was correct, if not late to the conclusion, as he had already triggered the Doomskar. A shimmering portal as wide as the realm itself gaped open in the sky. As scores of demons marched or flew through it, they would scour the rest of the realms, pillaging, burning, wreaking havoc, and bringing Kaldheim to heel. It would be centuries before the gods could put things back together, if there were even realms to put together at all after this. Tybalt was quite pleased with himself. Her code didn't matter now. Now Kaya felt that this was personal. I guess she was acting more like a hero. With a subtle nod, Tyvar and Kaya charged the Planeswalker, attempting to rush him down before he could use the Sword of the Realms to escape. Kaya threw one of her new axes. It flew perfectly through the air and grazed Tybalt's shoulder, causing him to jump back and lose footing. Good, press the attack, don't let him get up. Tybalt wasn't very keen on fighting at close distances, or at all for that matter. He preferred his enemies to fight their own demons. Tybalt opened his mouth and outpoured a dark smoke, like that from a forest fire, thick, hot, and burning with cinders. Kaya did her best to protect her lungs and eyes, but even covering her face with a cloth did nothing. It was like the smoldering bits of smoke found every possible crack between its fibers. Kaya believed this smoke was a distraction. It means to hide Tybalt's position for an attack. She was on guard, losing sight of Tyvar. Paranoia was growing. This was the true power of Tybalt's abilities. The smoke didn't only invade her lungs, but also her mind. A voice, similar to Kaya's, but not quite, was speaking to her, masquerading as her own thoughts. It was telling her to give up, leave Kaldheim while she still could. It was plaguing on her own doubts and fears, that she wasn't a hero, that she couldn't be a hero, that this wasn't her fight, to just end it, live, and don't look back. Kaya almost succumbed to these thoughts, but she realized it was just more of Tybalt's magic. Shaking the thoughts free, Tybalt swung in with the Sword of the Realms, as Kaya seemed helpless to defend herself. Though Kaya's instincts believed that she should have been dead, there was no pain, as she opens her eyes again to see Tyvar standing between Tybalt and herself, blocking that thrust with his arm guard. Tybalt is surprised and asks, "Who the hell is this?" And Tyvar replies in his most humble of ways, "The Prince of Elves, greatest hero of all of Kaldheim." As Tyvar and Tybalt dueled, Kaya thought back on the smoke that had preyed on her insecurities. Why didn't it do the same to Tyvar? Could it be? Oh god. It's because he doesn't have any. He's too young, confident, and arrogant for that sort of magic to take root in his mind. Kaya had to thank the gods. Finally, arrogance was useful. Tyvar clearly outmatched the devilish planeswalker, throwing Tybalt around like he had never been in a true fight before. Certainly he was out of his element, and even with some fire magic, Tyvar was unimpressed, throwing Tybalt over his shoulders and slamming him hard upon the rocks, knocking the wind right out of his lungs. Tybalt was defeated, but he had ultimately accomplished his goal, which he was keen to show to his adversaries. Tyvar and Kaya watched as a legion of demons marched through the portal towards unsuspecting realms. Tybalt cackled in heinous fashion as fire engulfed him, his voice trailing off as if echoing against the air itself. Then, he was gone. Tyvar was mystified. He didn't have the Sword of the Realms. Where did he? He planeswalked, Kaya interrupted. That's what we can do, and that's what we should do right now. Tyvar looked out at the vast demon army and saw a singularly large figure rise from the magma. It was true that Tyvar had never been to Immersturm before, but all 9 realms knew of this monster. Tales of Vargoth, the Blood Sky Sire, have been told for generations, ever since his first incursion to another realm left his scar upon Kaldheim. Tyvar was indeed confident, but even he knew he was no match for this sort of force. He urged Kaya to join him in rallying forces, but Kaya hesitated. It's over, she thought. Kaya tried to convince Tyvar that it was best to move on. They could planeswalk away, try again on another world. They had failed here. With the Doomskar on them, there was nothing they could do. There were just two people against what seemed like fate. But Tyvar refused. This was his home, his world. If being a planeswalker meant walking away when a fight gets hard, then he didn't want to be a planeswalker. He'd rather die on Kaldheim defending it. Tyvar opened one of his omen paths and left Kaya there, amongst the smoldering ruins, with the power of her pending planeswalk still floating in the air. Tyvar's words cut deeper than she realized. What did it mean to be a hero? If a planeswalker could just leave at any time, were they ever truly in danger? What was worth risking everything for? The voices in her head, either TIBALT'S or her own, they plagued her, but also pushed her. Pushed to discover who she was. Kaya stopped planeswalking and walked through the Omen Path with Tyvar. Alright guys, that's going to do it for Chapter 4 of the official story we have for Kaldheim. Let's pivot right into my thoughts so far. Well, last week we were given a glimpse into the mind of TIBALT and uncovered loads of hidden gems, potentially with the story involved with a deeper involvement of the Phyrexians and all that jazz. Chapter 4 puts us right back into the thick of the action as we see that TIBALT was, and still remains, one of the physically weakest planeswalkers in all of Magic the Gathering. I mean, sure, he can plot an evil scheme with the best of them, but if you get within 10 feet of the dude, he just pretty much topples over. I get it, I'm really crushing the TIBALT apologists out there with all this information, and yeah, I know Tyvar is a little bit more physically imposing, but how many times does TIBALT need to face defeat for this title of puniest planeswalker to officially be crowned to him, right? Now, that being said, I don't want to insult the guy too much. TIBALT did serve his purpose and triggered the Doomskar, exactly what Vorinclex needed for whatever he's doing. But I don't think we'll be hearing from either of those villains for the remainder of the Kaldheim story. With TIBALT planeswalking away in a crumpled heap, Kaya and Tyvar are left to rally Kaldheim to fend off the demons of Immersturm, which is kind of a bummer. We, again, don't see TIBALT live up to the full villainous potential. He continues on this same MO of just showing up, causing havoc, causing chaos, and then just putting the story forward for other peoples to pick up his mess, and then he kind of just disappears without any real consequence. So he gets away scot-free, and even with Kaldheim, I don't see his character developing pretty much at all outside of that. But you know what? There's still plenty of story left, so who knows? Anyway guys, that's going to do it for today's video. If you enjoyed it and want to keep track of the story, make sure you leave us a like, subscribe, and tick that notification bell so you know exactly when the next chapter goes live. If you want to help us keep making this content, check out our Patreon page linked in the description below. You can help keep us going while getting previews early, signed cards, and much more, so check all of those out. Regardless guys, thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, see ya!